Well, guys, so big hello from Queensland here in Australia. And look, I guess I've got 30 minutes with you to really dive in and give you some energy and focus around a few key areas that might be able to help you to build your business as well. Before I get started, a little bit of a journey that I wanted to share with you. I was 18 years old when I joined this profession, and it was a phenomenal journey. I had this vision to one day be a stay-at-home dad. That was kind of the reason I got started. I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with my own father when I was a kid. And so when I was presented with this time freedom, financial freedom based opportunity in this industry, I thought, wow, I'm going to go for this. And my first 5 years, I went from failure to failure, but with great enthusiasm. I had that vision that was stuck in the back of the mind, but I really didn't get a lot of results. And today I want to talk about some of the key principles that I identified as a result of the struggle. I always talk about crisis is what we really need often to ignite evolution. And isn't that a beautiful time in the world to be using that philosophy as well? But especially when it comes to business, sometimes we learn from our greatest challenges. And the reason that a lot of what I was doing back then didn't work in those first 5 years was that I really didn't understand the relationship building piece properly. I saw everyone as a transaction. I thought I was going to build this business by just going and contacting people about my business, but I forgot the one key piece that really makes all the world of difference, which is the human connection. So we will speak a little bit about that today as well. And that really can lead on to us accomplishing our vision and helping us to become more productive as well. As I went through the journey, I eventually found a few ways to create success. I went on and built teams of tens of thousands of people around the world, and then was invited to serve in a big company, senior corporate management, and went on and trained. But you know, we haven't got an hour to speak about the James Yates story. I'm here to help you build your business. So I wanted to really dive into a few key topics today that really could help you to do that. And I guess the first thing that I want to really focus on is I understand that all of you on this call have all very different backgrounds. Some of you have been in this industry for a long period of time. Some of you have maybe only have joined recently. For those of you that are watching live, can I get you to raise your hands if you've been in this industry less than 6 months? Just put your hand right up so I can get a feel for it. And what about for those of you that have been in this industry for more than 5 years? Also love to get a bit of a feel. And for everyone else, put your hand up as well, because let's just do that. All right, fantastic. Okay, guys, so to get a bit of a feel for this, look, there's something that I always identify that people go throughout this journey very, very quickly. And this is something that's very common when you're learning anything new. And many of you may have seen this before, but this is the 4 stages of competency. And whenever we start something new, I'm just going to use this little diagram I built. And by the way, feel free to draw this, because this could be a really big benefit. I used to use this as a risk management system in my own business when I was helping to build teams, because everyone starts with really high motivation, yet they start with a lot of drive and passion, but the reality is that their skills are very low. And this first phase is what we call the unconsciously incompetent phase, right? And as I said, you may have heard this before, but I'm just going to put at the bottom here, UC, which is unconsciously competent. UI, unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know. That's ignorance on fire. And so basically what happens is a lot of us get really, really excited when we join something new, or we might go and make an emotional purchase of something from the store, and you know, we get home and it's all really, really good. But after about 3 days or 72 hours, our motivation starts to drop, because we realize that either we didn't need that as much as we thought we did, or in this instance, we realize that we actually don't know a lot and we don't really know where to start. And so naturally our motivation starts to dip, and we see it kind of dip quite low often as well. And as a result, we come to the next stage, which is where we're unconsciously competent. So that's where we've gone from unconsciously incompetent to now we actually know we don't know anything. And the reality is, in this industry, like most industries, most people will quit when they really finally work out that they need to know a lot more than they first thought. And that's why you see such a big diversity when it comes to the results that people say they're going to get versus the results they go and get in those first few months. You know, oh, this is going to be so easy. I'm just going to run out there. I'm going to make this work. But the reality is sometimes we see it become a little bit more difficult, because we get people that say no to us. And sometimes we're not prepared for that, right? And so we don't have the skills to be able to overcome those pieces of experience. And so what happens here is, as we get here, we see most people quit their businesses within the first, and sometimes it could be a few years, but most of the times within the first few months, just literally as a result of not making enough calls, not getting the skills, and not getting the learnings from those mistakes to be able to move forwards. However, as we go into the next phase, we become C, consciously competent. And that's where we start to see, we know really the skills that we need in order to become successful. We start to see the results start to flow as a result of consciously doing things on a day-to-day basis. And that's why when we speak in this industry about consistency, it's absolutely paramount that we're consistent, because we're learning from that consistency all the way through, not only in terms of the outcomes, but also just the journey, the day-to-day action. And as a result, we start to see the motivation start to raise, and it ends up going up like this. Eventually it becomes higher than when we first emotionally bought into this industry. If this is making sense, just sort of put your thumbs up and give me a make sense so far, right? And the reason I love to use this is because when we actually set the expectation for people up front, naturally what happens is we're able to manage the risks so that the motivation doesn't actually drop as low. So for example, when John joins the business, we say, hey, John, listen, this is going to be a journey of highs and lows. We're going to have times where we learn lots of great things, but we're going to have times where you're going to feel like you are going to get a better result than you currently are. And that's totally normal. That's part of the plan. But as a result, what I'd love you to be able to share with me is when you feel like you're starting to become aware of what's not working for you, speak up, reach out, because I'm going to help manage you through that process in terms of your own energy more than anything. I'm not going to do this for you, but I'm going to help manage your energy. And naturally, at the end of the day, we want to get to this final phase, this final column, which is the unconsciously competent stage. So I just want to summarize so far. I'm not sure if you can see all of this in my writing. Trying to do it like this is not necessarily that great, but unconsciously incompetent is where we start. We don't know what we don't know. We become conscious now that we don't know anything. So now we're consciously incompetent. And then we lead over to this third phase, which is consciously competent, and then unconsciously competent. Unconsciously competent is like driving a car. You don't necessarily know or remember every single time you've put the car into different gears. You've done it because you've been doing it for so long. And that's naturally where we see a lot of leaders, succeed ultimately. And sometimes someone will join the company and they'll go so much faster than you did. And you'll go, how have they done it? Why are they doing it faster than me? The reality is that they've done a huge amount of their own journey, maybe already networking, just being a great relationship builder, and they've gone through that phase already. And if you look at Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, he talks about the average person to master their craft takes 10,000 hours to be able to master their craft. And so if you put it into context here, it's going to take 10,000 hours to go from the start of this journey to the end of this journey. Now, why am I sharing this with you? A lot of you may already know this. Well, because my journey was in these first two phases for 5 years. But my greatest challenge did never, ever outweigh, the vision that I had. And we've got to be so clear on the fact that purpose is driving productivity. If we're clear on what we're doing and why we're doing it, we know that that's going to keep us going through the tough phases. But as an upline, if you're someone already with a team, you have the ability to be able to say, I'm going to use your motivation, but my skills, because I've already been doing this longer, in order to be able to help you to get the result. And this is what's so beautiful about this perfect match between people working together, the connection of humans building a business. And that's why this industry is only going to continue to thrive right now in this current climate, because people are completely craving human connection more than ever before. Couple that with a product like yours and everything that you've got in place, and you're in really, really good hands. But remember the 10,000 hour game, because if you look at the 10,000 hour game and you put it into practical terms, if you're 5 years in the business full time, there's your 10,000 hours. But most people aren't full time for their first 5 years. They're part time or any time. And so the reality to get your 10,000 hours, it may take 8, 10 years. And that's okay. It's okay, because the longer you stay in and do your hours, the more skills, the more wisdom you're going to have to be able to share with your team. But the power of this is obviously you don't have to do your 10,000 hours to make money, because you've got already other people that you can call on, such as on this call, that have already done that time. Now, as I went through that journey, my 6th year, everyone said, James, where did you get this result from? This is amazing. You've just come from nowhere and you've got it. But no one saw the story before the glory. No one saw that initial 5 years worth of heartache. And for those of you that might be doing it a little bit tough right now, hang in there, because this is a journey that's going to allow you to really gain a huge amount of results and transfer those into anything else you want to do in life, because it really covers 3 main areas. Number one, the foundational principles of this entire journey is all about understanding self. Number two is the connection with others. And number three is optimization, how to optimize your business. Now, I know you guys use the word expansion in your team name, and I have a concept called the expansion zone, which entailed these three areas I've just mentioned: foundation, connection, optimization. Now, as I started to travel and build these teams around the world, the one thing I started to identify, which was a really common theme, not just in network marketing, but with athletes, with high-level business performers, those people that have gone on to achieve the ultimate level of success in the old way of doing it have often done it at the jeopardy of everything else, whether it's their relationships, whether it's their health. People have basically focused so linear on the end goal that they've forgotten about everything else. But we're in a time right now where success is multidimensional. And what I mean by that is, you know, we've got to focus on a few key principles in order to get balance within our lives. Now, you've got a product that focuses on that. You've got a whole range there that works for that. But at the same time, we've got to have intent when we get out of bed every morning to ensure that, number one, we put the oxygen mask on us first before we try to help anybody else. You know, the problem I see so often is that we're trying to build these teams. We're trying to help so many people. We're trying to get everything moving, but we haven't taken care of the person staring back in the mirror. And when we don't take care of ourselves, it's very easy to get to the top of a plan, but burn ourselves out. And so some of the principles I talk about when it comes to the foundation are self-care strategies. You know, making sure that you take care of what you're eating. Make sure that you take care of how often you're moving. You know, I had a client this morning call me up and say, James, listen, I need to get more results in my business. And my first question was, when did you last detoxify your body? Number two, when did you last move every 20 minutes? When was a day that you can remember every 20 minutes you were moving? They said, I can't. I said, well, because the key here is that I can show you the skills in order to get the success, but unless you put the oxygen mask on you first, it's not going to mean anything. And so, you know, the question I have for you is, how much are you investing in you right now? How much are you using this time, not only to build a business, but to also, you know, help in terms of, you know, focusing on changing your neurological pathways so that you can shift the way you think and you can manifest the things that you desire by simply changing a few habits, beliefs, and thoughts. You know, it's a really interesting time for us all because this is such a beautiful opportunity to be able to go inwards so that we can go outwards. And so, you know, things like mindfulness, very, very powerful in terms of being able to shrink our amygdala in our brain so that we don't, you know, live with a stress response, a perpetual amount of stress on a daily basis. You know, this is a time that's allowed us to go and focus on that. You know, if there was a snake in front of us, naturally we would look at that and we would jump, right? That's our amygdala kicking in, releasing, you know, cortisol, and you've got the whole story as a result of the stress response. But by being able to practice mindfulness, we can all of a sudden look at that snake and identify in the same split second that that's actually a snake, and we don't respond as well or as bad. So the same thing happens in terms of your morning routine. How you start your day is one of the most profound things that you could possibly do in order to gain the success that you desire long term. You know, we found that 86% of people at the moment are reaching for their phone first thing in the morning, and over 50% of those people are reaching for their phone before they speak to their spouse who's lying next to them. The problem with that is we put ourselves into reaction mode the moment we open our eyes. And then we have the same stress response mechanism kick in as if there was a snake in front of us. But we haven't practiced any form of mindfulness or ways to be able to shrink that amygdala and relax the body. So now what's happening is we're reacting to everything. We react to our phone. We have our dopamine effect kick in, which is basically, you know, our anticipation and hoping for a reward. One of our happy hormones, our dopamine, really does that for us. And so by looking at the phone now, the stress kicks in, the anticipation kicks in. We don't want to put it down. And then once we can get back in our cars and go off to an office, for example, for some people, then someone honks their horn in the traffic. The next minute you're reacting to that. And then we react to the next thing. And for us to play as high performers here and to get the results that we desire, we've got to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves through a few key areas in the morning that remove the technology piece to start with and focus on self. You know, one of the key things I said to Lorraine, you know, what do we want to focus on today? And we spoke about productivity. Productivity starts the moment you open your eyes. It's about starting with intent. And so the most important thing I find is to utilize some form of routine that can become a subconscious habit that you can apply with your family. And I'm just going to give you what I do today as maybe something that can impact your business as well. And that is MBI. M stands for move, B stands for breathe, I stands for intentions. Moving for at least 20 minutes, getting the endorphins, getting the dopamine up so that you feel good. Oxygen through the lungs, ideas start to flow. B, breathe, some form of mindfulness. You could just be stretching, but focusing on the breath, focusing on the present. That's going to also start to help our stress response become better. That's also going to allow us to make better decisions and be more productive. And then I, setting the intention as if you've already done something, but saying it before you've done it. So if it's 6 a.m. and you've just now done your moving and your breathing, and now you're setting an intention for the day, the intention might be that you're contacting 5 people for your business. It might be as simple as that, but we need to say it as if we've already done it. You know, so today I've spoken to 5 people for my business, and I feel great. Creating an emotional attachment to that intention allows us to move mountains. What it does is it starts to change our neurological pathways and convinces us that we can already do things that we haven't yet done. And you can apply that to all different things. This is a beautiful little biohack that allows us to change things very, very quickly in terms of the results. So move, breathe, intentions. Move, breathe, intentions. And we can do that in a variety of ways. You know, if we're in home at the moment, we can still be moving, we can still be breathing, we're still setting our intentions. If you can get out, even better. Feet firmly planted on the ground can reduce inflammation in the body. If you're outdoors, it can do so many great things. So try to do as much outdoors as possible. But here's the other hack. Move, breathe, intentions, and then GFC. Gratitude. You will get what you want when you're grateful for what you have. What's your gratitude routine at the moment? We've found that by practicing gratitude every single day, we can elevate our serotonin levels, another happy hormone that makes us feel great. And by sitting around, I have a little 3-year-old, and my partner and I and our 3-year-old every single morning ask each other, what are you grateful for? And by just taking those 5 minutes to focus on that area, we're not only feeling good, but we're able to manifest more throughout the day as well. The G is the gratitude. The F, well, we all have different philosophies on different things. I'm a big fasting guy, right? I love to fast until lunchtime. You guys might have a different principle that you love to play with, but for me, by intermittent fasting, we can also play really, really, phenomenally from a biological perspective with our bodies. So I always bring that in as well. So fast till lunchtime, because that allows us to then, utilize the internal energy rather than focusing on externally trying to put things in there. And you can't really eliminate and accumulate at the same time, but that's for another day. The final piece is C for connection. There's the Harvard University study that's been done that has shown on human longevity. They've took 720 odd people, and half of them went to Harvard and half of them were from Boston in a really poor area. And they focused and studied and researched them for over 80 years, going back every single year and looking at what made them tick. And what they found is no matter where you came from, no matter who you are, the reality is that you will live longer if you connect from a meaningful perspective with more people. If you have meaningful interactions and conversations, fantastic. And so one of the key things that we always did when we were still building in the field was after we focused on putting the oxygen mask on us first, we would then connect with people, and often those were the people that we were working with in the team, giving them energy, giving them love. Loving on people that you're working with. It not only makes us all feel great, but at the same time, it allows us to connect further and become more productive collectively together. So let's summarize. M for move, B for breathe, I for intentions, and then GFC, which is gratitude fast, and then also into the connection piece. And hey, maybe it's just a family member. Maybe you haven't spoken to a family member for a while, but here's the thing. I don't pick up my phone for the first 2 hours in the day until I've done all of that. The connection piece is the final piece. And once we've done that, all of a sudden now we're feeling great. We're able to tap into our intuition more because we've completely removed external barriers. So we're able to go inwards. And as a result, when we go into becoming more productive, we're able to deal with pressure more. We're able to make more calls. We're able to deal with scenarios that get thrown at us when we least expect them. And that's what's so fantastic about this whole piece. That leads me into the next part of this whole conversation though, and that is, how do you optimize your performance? So it's one thing to do the foundation, which is to put investment into self. It's another thing to focus on connection with others. And the connection with others as well, I always love the concept of turning strangers into friends and friends into family. We often have this transactional mentality in business, which is I'm contacting that person for my business. but we forget to really identify what that person's all about first. And often in many different types of scenarios, whether it's team building or even from a corporate standpoint, there's a disconnect with the people that are brought into the team because we don't understand one key principle, which is the values piece. If we know our own values, if we know who we truly are, and we identify that the people that we're going to work with have at least one common value, then we're going to have the ability to be able to move mountains collectively together. Where we see conflicts start to arise in any form of team environment or lack of productivity is where the values are completely disconnected and no one has a common value. And so by being clear on who you are first, it allows us to also ask the question, right, the people that I'm working with, do I truly know those people's values? And when I do, then I'm able to have conversations that allow us to become more productive as well. Then, as you've done that piece, you can then start to identify that your story is the greatest gift that you could ever be sharing. I always believe that network marketers are highly paid storytellers. You know, you get to share not only your story, but the story of other people that you've been working with, the story of people that have got great product results, the story that, you know, from a business standpoint. But again, the story is based on understanding our values first. We've got to understand our values, then we share our story, and we don't get scared to share it. I'm going to encourage all of you, if you're not yet on video and you're not putting yourselves out there in the world, not for your business, but just you sharing you, I'm going to encourage you to start trying to do that. Because by sharing you, you have to understand that no other person in the world has ever you know, walked your path in your own shoes with your values, with your beliefs, with your habits. And there are people out there right now that are looking to accomplish great success that haven't yet gone through the journey you've already gone through. And by you simply showing up as you, you're giving people permission to be themselves. That is the greatest way to attract people into your business, because people fall in love with you. So now you're turning strangers into friends before you try to turn friends into family. Is this making sense? Just give me a thumbs up if this is making sense so far. Okay, fantastic. And then, as I was saying, this then leads into the optimization piece. So the optimization piece then comes down to, okay, so how do I truly get the results that I seek? How do I truly make an impact in the world? One of the first questions I used to ask, and you might be doing the same as well, was when someone would join my business, I'd be saying, so why did you get started? And the reality is that I found over the years that most people don't truly know why until they've taken care of themselves first. They'll give us an answer that they think we want to hear. But once we've done the self-care piece, once we've done the foundational piece, then we've gone into the connection, and then we ask that question. Often the why is very different to when they first got started. And so what I find is that we have the purpose conversation after we've made sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And the purpose piece is very, very simple. I call this the 3 Ps, and with an I at the end. You can write this down. So PPPI. Purpose is number 1. And purpose is not just trying to find one reason for doing something. Purpose is finding meaning in everything that you do. And if you can't find meaning in everything or things that you do, then that's when you start asking the question, why am I doing it? But you know, what is the key connection for you building your business? What is the key connection with you if you're currently still working a day job? What's the key connection there? Where's the meaning conversation? That's really, really important to have as well. And then in addition to that, we've got to understand that the second P leads in from the purpose, which is passion. You know, I used to be someone that used to believe that if I got to the top of a plan, then I could live my passions. And so I see so many people say, yeah, I'm going to do that one day. But that one day never comes. What I found, the moment I started to really live my passions on a day-to-day basis, that's when I was able to get success in my business. So what are the things that you love to do that you're currently not doing? Is there a hobby that you currently have? Is there some sort of passion that you really know that you've put aside for the time being? What if you could bring that and show that into your day every single day, which is going to elevate more energy, make you enjoy the journey more, so ultimately you can get to that larger amount of success. I remember watching a guy that had climbed Mount Everest a few years ago, and he got to the summit, but not really to the summit. He got really within 20 meters of the summit. And then there was this massive blizzard and everything. I mean, it was basically a life and death scenario. Do I get there or do I save myself? And he basically said, look, I had to go back down, and he just survived. And the whole piece was that it took him, 10 years of training, all of the other stuff that he was doing as a kid to get there. He finally got there and he had to make this decision. And so he went back a few years later and he'd gone through the training again, got to the top, and he ended up hitting the summit. And the guy that was interviewing him said, you know, so how long were you at the summit? He said, oh, less than a few minutes. But it took me 15 years of training in order to get there. Guys, we've got to fall in love with the journey. If we don't enjoy what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, why are we doing it? Because, you know, that little glory that we see at the end of the day is really only such a fraction of it. And I believe we need the glory and the story. We need the journey and the glory all as part of one. I don't believe they really coexist. I don't believe they can exist without each other. I believe they coexist. And so it's really important to understand that if we've got meaning in what we do and we're doing what we love on a day-to-day basis, that things are going to start to work out. And the third P is presence. I used to believe that money was the biggest asset when I was a kid. Then I realized that time was the biggest asset. But I realized that now that presence is actually our biggest asset. We could all be on this call, but we may not actually be in the room. We might be thinking of other things. And for us to become great networkers, we've got to be able to listen to other people's stories. We've got to be able to identify what people are looking for. We've got to be able to share with people what we have that can solve certain problems. And by understanding that piece, we've got to really listen for those problems as well. So how often are you showing up from a presence perspective? And are you practicing maybe some of the areas that I spoke about before? The mindfulness piece can help you with that as well. That's very, very important. So that's purpose, passion, presence. And the final piece is influence. Ask good questions. Just become really good at asking questions. You know, I always believe that that old saying, listen, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you speak, is one of the best bits of advice that I'd ever got. Because by listening to what people are looking for, we can make major impact by sharing, again, the story, by sharing the wisdom that we have as a result of just becoming ourselves. And when we package all of this together, if someone says to me, what makes a really good networker, what makes a really good success story in any industry now, I say the same thing as I've just said today. Number 1, take care of yourself. Focus on that foundation. Number 2, then make sure that you're connecting not only with self and family, but with others, but understanding your values so that you connect with everyone with a common theme. Number 3, optimize your life by simply becoming really clear on the purpose, the passion, the presence, and then the influence piece can continue to grow. You can become great at influencing from stage. You can become great at influencing on calls. You can become great at influencing from so many different ways. But right now, it's remembering that that is the final piece of the puzzle. And that will come as a result of doing everything else in the expansion zone. So I know we've spoken about a lot of information in a very short period of time today, but I really hope that we've been able to give you some form of insight to something that may be able to help you on your journey moving forwards.